Hello everybody. Welcome to this stream. Just wait for folks to join. This week we'll build a game, or we'll vibe code a game, because there's one thing which seemingly everybody did thus far, but I haven't, and that is try vibe code a game. I'm actually super interested in building a game, and I want to do that, but I want to do it for real and like not vibe coded away. But I will probably do that with Godot, with the Godot engine, and it would be a game which I distribute via Steam and so on. But for today, I want to keep it much simpler and not learn Godot and all that stuff. So I'll just vibe code a game and see how far I can get there. Because again, I have zero experience with that. So hopefully it'll be fun, it'll be interesting, and we'll see how good AI is at that. I think it will be quite good. I think from what I've seen on X and so on, getting out some nice prototypes should be doable. Now, always important to keep in mind, vibing a basic prototype is one thing. Having something distribution ready, which also has taste and so on, is quite a different thing, but that's not the focus today. I just want to have a bit of fun. Yeah, so hi everybody. Thank you for joining. Thanks for being part of the stream and for, taking a look at that experiment here. So with that, without further ado, I'll jump right in and I'll create a new folder. And actually, I'll start Herder in a new session here. And get into that folder here. Start Pi, which is my favorite coding agent, of course. And go with that. And by the way, just to make it very clear, I'll, of course, always take a look at the chat and also try to answer some questions there. Like this one. I know it's off topic, but I just want to say your React.js Node.js tutorial really helped me a lot in learning web dev deeply. Okay, not a question, but a very nice comment. Thank you so much. And Logan, I'm super happy to hear that the courses were helpful. Always means a lot to me. I said it in the last stream, but I'm not getting tired of saying it. This is very, very nice and means a lot to me because I started creating those courses to share knowledge. So hearing that they were helpful, truly means a lot to me. So thank you so much. And with that, as I mentioned, and I mean it, I have absolutely no experience with how you build a game in the browser. I assume you use the Canvas API because that is how you can draw stuff to the browser, to the screen on a website. So I assume we're going to use that. Now I know there also are JavaScript game engines, but I don't know which ones. I've heard about this one here, Pixie.js. So I'm not sure. Maybe we'll be using that, but I don't know. And I will actually research with API. And I could do that on ChatGPT in the ChatGPT app or the ChatGPT website, but I'll just do it here in Herder in my Pi session because I do have a couple of skills set up here, a couple of tools like my web research skill, which uses some tools, which should make that research process quite efficient. So I'll just say I want to build a browser-based client-side game powered by JavaScript. So I don't want to use WebAssembly or anything like that. And I just realized I'm in the way here. I don't want to move myself around. So what I'll just do here is, can I not clear this and get rid of that stuff up there? Well, I'll just end line breaks manually. Powered by JavaScript. I have no experience with that. How would I do that? Use the Canvas API, use some game engine. I want to build, that's maybe important, a Brotato-like game, a basic Brotato clone. And I hope it knows what that is. In case you don't know, store Brotato it's really not the most elaborate game ever, but it's fun. I've played it quite a bit. You just run around, you can get weapons during runs, and then you automatically shoot enemies. So I want to build something like this. Do some in-depth research and share your findings and thoughts. Do not write any code yet. I'm adding this here because I'm using GPT 5.6 Sol here, which is very trigger happy in my experience. So yeah, better safe than sorry, and add this instruction. And it activates the web research skill as it should, and now it goes ahead and does some web research. And then we'll see. Yeah, I'm using GPT 5.6 Sol. I know I'm in the way. Now you can see it here, GPT 5.6 Sol. I'm using that. And we'll see how well things go. And by the way, I'll vibe code this. Still, I'll take a look at the code because I'm interested in what it does. And I will steer it. So it's not pure vibe coding. I'm not saying, hey, build me a Brotato clone. I want to have it do research first. I'll analyze it. I'll think. So yeah, it'll be vibe coding extended, I guess. Yeah, so welcome everybody who's here for the first time. Nice to have you here. I hope it'll be fun, and we'll see what we get. Now I can see it is researching Pixie, which is that one engine I knew. It's also researching Godot, but I don't want to use that. I know you can use Godot to build web games too, but I really want to keep it simple. I don't want to work in a separate editor or bring in a separate engine. I'm fine with bringing in some JavaScript libraries, but I don't want to like switch to the Godot engine editor and all that stuff. So I want to keep it simple, and we'll see what it suggests there. Is there a reason why I'm using GPT Sol versus Claude? The biggest reason, which is a stupid reason, is that I want to use Pi, and I can't use my Claude subscription with Pi. As far as I know, I would have to use their API, which I don't want to. Now, I could use Claude Code. Nothing wrong with Claude Code. I have it installed, but I want to stay here in Pi, so that's why I'm using that. That's the main reason. Currently, I have Claude Code, or I have the Claude subscription. I have the OpenAI subscription, and I even got the Super Grok subscription because the base tier is included in the X subscription, which I have. So I can freely switch between Grok and GPT 5.6 because those are both available through their subscription in Pi. And if we feel like we need the power of Fable, I can switch to Claude Code too. By the way, since this is working, here I'm in Herder. I did create a video about that on my Academite channel, which may be interesting last week. Herder is a pretty great tool in my experience, in my opinion. It runs in a terminal, so if you hate terminal stuff, that's not yours. But the nice thing is it has it has mouse support, so you can do stuff with your mouse here. It's not just shortcuts, though it has shortcuts too, of course. And it makes it easy to organize multiple agents. Here I just have one, but I could now, for example, I have to disable my annotation tool though. But now I could open a new tab here. Now I have two tabs. This keeps running. I could start a second Pi session here, and now I would have both agents here. I can switch between them here with my mouse, and of course also with the shortcuts. And that's really nice. So I like that. So if we need multiple agents, we can do that. And I could, for example, therefore, also start Claude Code here in that second one. So now I have Claude here, and we could work with both if we wanted to. But for now, I just have that one research agent, and it's fine, and we'll see what that gives us. Yeah. How do you manage your subscriptions? You seem to have a lot since you play with a lot of things. Yeah, I mean, I have all these, so for one, I don't have all these subscriptions all the time. Right now I have them because there has been so much going on in the model space, and I do create courses and videos on all these models and work with them, so I kind of need to stay informed, but it's not like I have all these subscriptions forever. It's just when there is interesting stuff happening, I have them. So that's why currently I have both Anthropic, the big Claude subscription, and the OpenAI one. Yeah. And yeah, how do I get on with Sol? I like it a lot. I will say it's a very capable model. I am using it on high. Here in the bottom, you can see it. I'm using it on high. That works pretty well for me. I will say 5.6 Sol, as I said before, is very trigger happy. So you sometimes need to stop it. And it also loves to add extra complexity. That's one issue I've been struggling with. It really likes adding lots of complexity, and you have to kind of control that, which is why I added an extra decomplex skill. And yeah, you really have to rein in also during your reviews and make sure that it doesn't add layers of complexity. It also loves to add fallback code. It hates to delete code. Many models struggle with that. But these are things to watch out for, and I have adjusted my skills and my prompts to make sure that it's more incentivized to act the way I want it to act, but it is a very powerful and capable model. That's why I'm still using it despite that. I mean, these are things you adjust in your AgentsMD or in your skills, and then it works quite well in my experience. By the way, if you're interested, I have some skills published on GitHub. That is under Maxed Apps Agent Skills. Those change all the time, and they are heavily fine-tuned for me and for Pi, so that's worth knowing. But in case you're interested, I have some skills there. So that's essentially the setup I'm currently using here for building this game here too, or for researching right now. Yeah, that's the setup. Did I try Kimi K3? Yeah, I did. I only got a very cheap plan there though. I tried using it via OpenRouter and the API, but that kept on crashing. So I got their, I think, second cheapest subscription to try it out. And Kimi was really good. I just did not get the big subscription, and therefore I constantly ran into rate limits, because the one thing I noticed about Kimi K3 was it's not super token efficient. That was one problem I had. It's not super token efficient. Yeah, but I'm sure that will also improve with this model or with future versions, and it's a really good, very capable model. I will say that. Where do I write the code? So two things. I won't write too much code, but when it comes to inspecting code, I have a Herder plugin, File Viewer, which currently doesn't work, I guess because it's an empty folder, which would allow me to view files. And I also do actually, old school, just open a folder in VS Code, because I'm just so used to VS Code. I tried NeoVim again, but I don't know I'll ever learn NeoVim and all the shortcuts again. But yeah, I do really just use VS Code too if I need to analyze something. Yeah, and I also use yeah, you'll see what I do as soon as we got something to edit. I'm not sure why File Viewer is not opening up. I do have a plugin which normally should open the files of this project here in a side panel, but that's not working for some reason. Not sure why. Anyways, now let's take a look. I added a little extension which opens up the last agent message as HTML, so it renders the markdown as HTML, so that it's a bit more convenient for me to analyze. And that is now the answer I got from GPT from all the research, so we'll go through that. And I'm still also tweaking that. I'm working on my own extension, my own little tool that allows me to easily add annotations here, so that I can easily annotate right here on this website and then click a button and then copy it back into the session, so that I can collaborate on a plan and on reviews. But I'm not there yet, but that's good enough. Actually, I already added an annotate plugin here in Pi, which opens the last message in an overlay. And now I can select stuff here, press A and add an annotation like don't do that. And now that would be stored and I can manage those annotations. And if I go back and press submit, it would submit this annotation. So that's a little extra extension I added. Now, I don't care about that here. I'll actually go back to the previous assistant message. But that's basically how I work. But again, that's all still evolving. But I try to make it easy for myself to pass messages back to the agent for it to pick up. What game am I wipe coding? I will build a Brotato clone. That's the plan. A very basic one in the browser. Then I want to tell you, you're my first teacher that teach me React on Udemy. I got a job because of you. Thank you so much. I said it before, but I'll not get tired of it. Means a lot to me. I started creating courses to share the knowledge, and hearing that it got you a job or helped people in general means a lot to me. So thank you so much for sharing this. Yeah, Sol tends to over-engineer. Watching your stream on the phone feels like a crime. It makes me open my laptop and code something. Well, it's not too bad. Is Pi like the modern cool kids new school TUI for AI? Looks like a terminal multiplexer with opinions and UX for collab with AI. Well, Pi is a very minimal coding agent. The multiplexing stuff here comes from Herder, which is a totally different tool. You can use Pi just in the terminal without it, but this multi-pane stuff here, that's Herder. And the fact that it keeps on running if you leave the pane, that's Herder. Pi is just a minimal, very extensible coding agent. I guess it's the cool kid stuff. Yeah, it's for the people like me who like to really fine-tune everything and have control over their tools. There's absolutely nothing wrong, obviously, with using Codex, the Codex desktop app, Claude Code, T3 Code, whatever it is. There are so many great coding agents, and all of them can be used, let's be honest. This is just what I like working with, and I can fine-tune it exactly to my needs and wishes. That's essentially the idea. What's the process you use when starting a game from scratch? Do you test proof the concept? I have never built a game before. And I have never vibe coded a game before, obviously, since I never built one. So it's the first time. But my approach is I start with research, because since I have never done this, I actually need to find out how are we doing that. So I had the agent research. My prompt was essentially, I have no experience with building a game. I want to build a Brotato-like game, do some research on the technologies and so on. And now this is the answer I got back, rendered out as HTML. It's a bit easier to read than in the terminal. And see what it tells me. So it tells me I should use Phaser 4 as an engine. So let's Google that. Because again, I like to understand what we're dealing with. So Phaser, I guess, is the engine. Yes, I'm human. Hello. Okay, Phaser is the engine. And is there a Phaser 5? Is it working on outdated knowledge? No, it's Phaser 4 as it seems. Okay, Phaser. Yeah, but that's a pay. Well, no, I'm not going to pay for that. No, we're not going to use that. So that's why you should not blindly accept what it tells you, and why I'm not a fan of just telling it, hey, build me that game, because it might just use a tech stack I don't want to use, and I don't want to use an engine which may have limitations or stuff like that. So I'll say right away, I don't want to use Phaser. Looks like I have to pay for that at some point. Let's go raw canvas or maybe Pixie.js. Do some more research and get back to me. So we'll send it off, but I'll still continue reading what it tells me here, because just because I'm not happy with that engine does not mean that the rest has to be wrong. It's free? Oh, it's free. Well, thanks so much for telling me. I was just confused because it says products and pricing, and then I see all these credit packages. But if you say it's free, we may give it a try. Still, I want to see which alternatives it digs up. But good to know. Thank you so much. But still, let's see what else it says. So it says TypeScript, yeah, Vite. I was planning on doing that anyways. Phaser arcade physics. Yeah, well, we'll probably not host it. Do not add React, Redux, and ECS frameworks. That's entity component system, I guess. Yeah, we'll not do that. Canvas API versus Game Engine. The Canvas API is not really an alternative. It gives me the drawing surface. Yeah, but sure, I get it. For performance, that's not ideal. Engine comparison, that's interesting. So Phaser 4 is the complete 2D web game framework. Pixie is a very capable WebGL, WebGPU renderer, great renderer, but you must assemble more game infrastructure. Okay, so that's not a game engine. I see. That helps me with rendering with WebGL, WebGPU, but that is a game engine. I see. Excalibur, TypeScript first, batteries included, 2D engine, attractive alternative, but officially still pre 1.0. Whoops. Excalibur engine. Do they have how actively maintained is this? It's very active. Okay, so we could use that too, but since it's in development, it might be running into a lot of problems here. Yeah, Godot, I like Godot a lot. And yeah, it's awesome that you completed 80% of the Flutter course, but please don't spam the chat. Claude, recreate Phaser 4, make no mistakes. Yeah, please stop spamming. I don't want to ban you. I also started with you on Udemy, just finished a bootcamp to get a certificate. Your courses taught me most of the foundations and coding. Still looking for a job in this market. Any recommendations? Yeah, the job market is brutal, I know. The biggest recommendation, which I share over and over again, I know it's not super satisfying. You need to stand out. And in order to stand out, what I think can help is have some sort of presence, be it on YouTube, on X, on Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever it is. You don't have to become an influencer, but do stuff, share stuff that makes you stand out a bit more. I've read it over and over again on X, for example, that people got job offers because they were very active there. And that is not satisfying. That's just one suggestion, at least one suggestion I can give you. What am I using to show the plan as HTML? That's basically a custom tool and extension I built. It's, did I open source it? It's this tool, MDR, Maxed Apps MDR. It's public. It's written in Rust. It's basically a tool, and there are other tools like that too, which opens Markdown file, which renders Markdown as HTML and opens it. And then I built a Py extension, which I'm not sure, did I open source that? I also did PyMDR. Not sure if it's on NPM actually. Yeah, I did publish it to NPM. Which uses that tool and gives me a /mdr command. Whoops. And that then runs that tool, takes the last agent message, renders it as HTML, and opens that in the browser. That's what I'm doing. Use a game engine where you can do everything in code, no editor. Yeah, I absolutely want to do everything in code. I don't want to have to click around. I'm not sure how that works with Phaser. I'll have to take a look. I'll have to take a look again at Phaser. How am I using it? Do they have their own editor? I don't want to use their editor. No, I want to use just code. Okay, I'll have to tell the AI. Important. I understand that I could use Phaser for free, but I want no game engine editor. I want to do it all in code. What's the best, what's the best choice then? So we'll send that as a follow-up. Actually, whoops, I did not mean, okay, I messed up. I did not mean to interrupt it there. Doesn't matter. Important, I think Phaser might be free, but I don't want to use a game engine editor. I want to do it all in code. What should I use then? Did not mean to interrupt it. What did it suggest here? Use Pixie.js, okay. Yeah, I mean, that is one suggestion it had here too. Why not Pixie.js? Is excellent if you are an experienced developer. I am, who wants to design a custom engine. I don't want to design a custom engine, but I think AI can do a lot. I mean, we got over an hour left, so we'll see. Scene graph, yeah, I don't know. I mean, people have been building flight simulators with Three.js by just vibing away. We can certainly build like a 2D Brotato-like game without an elaborate engine. So I'm sure Pixie.js can do. Yeah, project architecture, scenes, game state, main menu, arena. Yeah, we won't have a shop. Oh, okay, no, that's not I get it. That's between the different waves that you can buy new weapons and so on. Gameplay systems, player movement, enemy spawning, enemy movement, obviously weapon cooldowns and targeting, projectiles, melee hitboxes, damage and health, pickups, currency, experience and leveling, wave timing, stats, modifiers. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. We'll probably not do audio here, but the rest sounds good, I guess. We'll get there step by step. Run state, current wave, health, currency, experience, owned items. That makes sense. Profile state. Yeah, I mean, that is obviously, since I asked for it for the complete game, we'll take it step by step. Scope the first version aggressively. Yeah. So the first version I want to build is simply one wave. I run around, and that may just be a rectangle shooting circles or something like that at randomly spawning rectangles. That's the first version I want to build. So yeah, one arena, one player, keyboard movement, we need that obviously, one enemy type, one auto firing. Yeah, exactly what I described essentially. That's what we'll build first. The first vertical slice, we'll keep it simple. And then later we'll add more waves and we'll add a shop between waves, suggested build order, movement in arena, one enemy, one complete wave. Yeah, important technical decisions, use TypeScript, yeah, do not add React. Simple physics for sure. Yeah, okay. Doesn't sound too bad. Now let's see what the follow-up answer here was. Use Phaser as a code-only library. Phaser is not an editor, it's MIT licensed. Okay, you can write everything in code. Well, then we can use Phaser. Yeah, I think we'll use it. Sounds good. We'll use it. I don't want to implement my own scene manager. No. Okay, yeah, we'll go with Phaser then. So I'll say we'll go with Phaser, TypeScript, Vite, etc. as you suggested. But it'll be all code. And the first vertical slice will be exactly what you suggested, since, as I mentioned, that is basically what I wanted, what you suggested. With that, go ahead and write a game.md file that summarizes the project and our decisions, including the tech stack details. That's something I like to do. I like to put that, so when I have that discussion with the AI, when I have it do research and all that fun stuff, once I'm done, I want to save that information because eventually we'll run out of context. So I'll start new sessions and I want to have a document, a markdown document that encodes the gist of all that information we gathered. So all the decisions, the definition of the game I want to build, of the tech stack, I want to have that in one central document, which I can then refer to for future sessions. So that's something I like to do here. And yeah, therefore, I'll have it write that into that document and then we can work from there. Yeah, Phaser has a GUI, but it's optional to sell it. Yeah, so we'll not use that. Thank you so much. for all the clarifications in the chat. Much appreciated. Do you know any skill or tool or something to help Claude make better models in Blender? That's something I haven't played around with a lot. I tried it once, and that was like a year ago when all the models sucked way more. So unfortunately, I can't help there. Very sorry. What's the gray window with your prompts? You mean overall here? That is herder plus pi. Herder is herder written like this. Herder is a terminal multiplexer, so it allows you to have multiple terminals in one, and pi is the coding agent I'm using. No, please don't stop chiming in with phaser guidance, by the way. It's much, much appreciated because I have zero experience with it. So a minor experience is much better than what I have. One thing I'm psyched to see for your game if you will use composition versus inheritance. This is a buzzy thing I've been seeing wherein you create smaller single-purpose things. So I actually don't know what the best practice or the common standard is for game development there because, again, I have zero experience with game development. So as I mentioned, I'll vibe code this a bit. I'll take a look. I'll share my opinions. I'll steer it a bit, but I'll go also to some degree with what the AI tells me. So I learned Flutter and Node.js with your course, and it actually saved my life because that's what is feeding my family now. You really know how to teach fast. May God bless you, Max. Well, I don't know what to say. That is just amazing. Thank you so much. That's blowing me away. I don't know if I saved your life, but I'm super happy that the course was helpful, got you a job, got you food on the table, so to say, and yeah. Many, many, many thanks for this very nice message. Means a lot to me. Thank you so much. Does GPT-Sol have memory like Claude? You mean in the chat if you use the app? Yeah. Here, I mean, when you're using it as a coding agent, it's up to you to manage the memory. Claude Code may have some built-in features there. I'm actually not using them if that is the case. I'm mostly using Pi, and there is no built-in memory feature. Am I German? Yes. Are you planning to create sprites? I don't plan on using some AI sprite service here. I will probably try to get it to build me sprites in code, but we'll start with simple rectangles. Okay, so now I got game MD. Now again, normally, and I don't know why it's not working, I would have a plugin in Herder which opens a file viewer side by side, but that's not a problem. Whoops, sorry. That's not a problem because the chat would be in the way anyways. So we can take a look at that in good old VS Code. Nothing wrong with that. And I got my rendered game MD file here, which summarizes the project. Will be developed entirely in code. No visual game editor. Yada, yada, yada. Phaser 4. TypeScript, Vite. Yeah, that all sounds good. One thing... Actually, I want to use PNPM, not NPM. Update GameMD. So it's just a tiny thing. I just want to make sure that it's not consistently using NPM. Since the entire supply chain attack stuff, I switched to PNPM just for a little bit of extra security. Okay, so that's that. The book Game Programming Patterns is a good reference. Yeah, I mean, once I get seriously into game development, which I want to do at some point, I will definitely soak up all these books, and I then don't want to vibe my way to it. But for now, that is what I'll do. Okay, so now I'll say git init and commit this one file, and then we'll get started. I'm also asking AI to write the step-by-step implementation flow where appropriate, and once the step is complete, add new details to the markdown. The next session. Yeah, you gotta kind of keep track or have some place for AI to keep track of what it already did. I mean, like the memory guidance in Claude, like remember this, then, got you. Pi has nothing like this built in. You could build your own extension, and you can also ask Pi to build its own extension that adds that feature. That's what I like about Pi a lot. do a backflip. And I don't think I will do that. I purchased your React Node course on Udemy. I love the React course so far. I'm at the food order app now. Thank you so much. I hope you'll get a lot out of the course. Thanks for purchasing it. And yeah, I'm happy to help with these courses. So thank you so much. So now let's continue. I'll start a new session, fresh context window, still in Pi. The one thing that is annoying, I can't scroll up to put this input field higher up there. Normally no problem, but now I'm in the way, but we'll get around it. So now, what I'll then typically say is I'll say something like we're building GameMD. So I'll point at that file so that the agent reads it. Let's now start with the base project setup, including dependency installation. And I could do this myself. I want to keep on chatting with you and not go through a bunch of setup work here. Do not write the actual game code yet. Just set up the base project. Give me a minimal setup, not a bunch of empty files and folders. Now, typically, I would ask it to create a plan first. And here it's a bit risky, but I trust it that it will be able to set up a basic Vite project. It should have enough of that in its training data. If it were a more complex setup, let's say a monorepo with multiple apps where some technologies are maybe lesser known, something like maybe TanStack or the Fact library, then I like to chat about that project setup too, and also maybe have it create a plan which I can analyze. But here, I'm hopeful that it will be able to just give me a properly set up Vite project here. Why PNPM? It's faster and it's more secure than NPM, though the latest version of NPM also got more secure. But still, it has nice defaults that can prevent certain supply chain attacks or make them a bit less likely to impact you. I think I can also zoom out a bit here. It's really super large. Question for Maximilian and the rest of the audience. How do you prevent muscle loss for development when your day job requires leaps and bounds done with agentic development and token maxing? You mean like the brain muscle? I think we'll just build new skills and we'll have to adjust what our brain does. So I think we'll lose some of the knowledge we built over time regarding syntax and so on. What we should keep or try to keep is like the entire architecture, systems design stuff and get better at that. And we'll learn how to properly work with these AI tools, because that's the stuff I'm definitely still figuring out. I have a certain flow and that looks different than from what it looked like 2 months ago. And it will probably look different again in 2 months. So I think that it's all moving so fast right now. It's really just something you have to adjust all the time. I'm thinking about Friday afternoons turning off tab complete and just build the artisan way line by line to keep it fresh. Yeah, one thing I also considered doing, and it's just hard to consistently find the time for it, also is do some good old school coding, not primarily to keep the skill active, though that would be a nice side effect, but also just for the fun of it, because I liked the old school coding. So that is definitely something I also considered, because yeah, I agree. Writing code is fun. 100% agree. Yeah. So, okay. So we got the project set up. Let me take a quick look. Read TypeScript, got an index HTML file, got our TypeScript file here. Yeah. Unsurprisingly, nothing that looks totally broken. Now, one thing we can do here is, of course, start our development server. Bring that up. Oof, flashbang. And yeah, we see that, which means it's working. No errors there. Awesome. Good. So Now with that, we could start a new session, but there's barely any context in here, so we can just continue here. Let's now continue with the first vertical slice. The base game 1 arena. The player randomly spawning enemies. A standard pistol weapon, not rendered actually. Projectiles fired automatically at enemies. Now we could break this up into multiple steps here, and if we would be building this entirely from scratch without an engine, that might be good to do, because we also have to build the underlying systems like a scene manager or the entire rendering logic. So depending how low level you are, the more you have to build, and in that case we should probably split it up. But since we're using an engine here about which I know nothing, but from what I read in that research document, it has all that stuff built in that we need, so we can probably build this in one go. So I'll just say create an implementation plan. Now when I say that, I actually kick something off, because I have a create plan skill set up, which is available on that in that skills repo I mentioned. And create plan is a skill that controls how the AI should create a plan. It includes stuff like delegate research tasks to sub-agents, so that it should use sub-agents and that it should do research, and that it should review the plan before it shows me the final plan, and a bunch of other stuff. I have a complete plan template in there, which I like it to use, so that the plan has a certain structure. So I just said create a plan here because I knew that I have that skill and that skill would be activated. And now here it's creating some sub-agents, also because of some other skill I set up, the use Pi sub-agent skill, which tells it how to create sub-agents. And I will probably build an extension on top of that to have a nicer user interface, but right now it's just spawning them as scripts, gives them a little prompt, and it uses different sub-agents like a scout sub-agent for exploring the workspace. There's not a lot there though. Research sub-agent for doing more research. And yeah, that's that. So that's what's going on here. And it should now do all that research, then draft a plan, then review the plan, do more research, and so on. And at some point, it should get back to me and show me a finished plan. And in that skill, I also mentioned that it should ask me if decisions are required. So that it should not blindly make a bunch of assumptions, but also that it shouldn't ask me for every little decision. That's what I have here. Do you think coding became pay to play? Interesting question. Right now, for us developers, yes, but of course, in a job, your employer would be paying for the tokens. So if you're not doing it personally at home as a hobby or as a freelancer, but then it's your job too, it's a business expense, the tokens will be paid for. And therefore, I think before AI, you also had to pay for developers, right? Now you pay for developers and tokens. And therefore, I think not a lot has changed there from a business perspective. From a developer perspective, if you work on your own, outside of business, outside of a company, yeah. Now you're suddenly paying money for something that was free before. You could argue that you get more done in less time, and your time is worth something too, but doesn't change the fact that you're paying money, yeah. I'm not using Grok. I'm using GPT 5.6 Sol here. But if I don't forget it, I will actually switch to Grok for the actual implementation, because Grok is really good at implementing plans in my experience. It's super fast and it's really a great model, the 4.51. This will be a top-down side-scrolling, top-down game, by the way, not side-scrolling. And yes, sorry for the flashbang. Do you ever go back and revisit your skills? Yeah, all the time. All the time. I really change my skills almost every day. Because I have certain things I'm not happy with, I see certain behaviors I don't like. I'm tweaking those skills all the time. I have them in a repository. I have my repository here, which has a different name than the GitHub one, or just a folder in the end. And in there, I have those skills. I work in there all the time, sync them back to GitHub, publish them, and then install them through the skills registry. So I do that all the time, yeah. ImoAI is such a wonderful tool for learning. If you are sincere, go build something, but then ask the LLM to teach you. Yeah, I mean, AI is really also a good tool for learning. And especially having it explain the code it writes can be a great way to learn about coding as well. Absolutely true. What is my opinion on Matt Pocock's skills? I haven't used them. I'm sure I've heard a lot of good things about them, so I assume they're good, but I really prefer to build my own skills and really tweak them to my liking and to the problems I'm facing, because I feel that's also how I learn more about how to properly do that and how I can improve my workflow with AI. I don't want to have someone else give me his workflow. I want to find my own workflow. That's basically my approach here, but I'm sure the skills are great. I'm vibing my own in DirectX directly. It's lots of fun. Been working on it for a month already. Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'll see how far we get here today in the browser. Do you go grok heavy or medium effort eventually? I think I typically use high. Though I guess for implementing a plan, I could use medium too, to be fair. I would need to test this a bit more. We can test it now if I think about it, if I don't forget it. Hello Max, about 9 years ago, I took your first course and in 3 weeks I started a senior position at Microsoft. Just wanted to share that. Wow. Congratulations, and 9 years, that's such a long time. The good old days. So thank you so much for being part of it back then. And hopefully it was helpful back then. Maybe it could help a bit in getting that job at Microsoft. So yeah, congratulations on that job. And thanks for sharing. It means a lot to me. Is it cheating to ask Claude to write your skills? No, I don't write my skills myself. I have AI write them. I tweak them myself. I do that. It's not like I blindly accept them. I mean, I read them. I ask AI for changes, and I also make changes myself instead of asking over and over again. But I don't write the skills generally. But I give, as always, research, planning, discussions, and then produce something. That I do the same for the skills. And you should take those skills seriously. They're not a lot of text, but they matter a lot. They get loaded a lot. These recent or the latest AI models, they're really good at activating skills. So they really can get the job done, but you should take time to really tweak them and improve them. That's my opinion, at least. I find skills very important. Also outside of AI, but when we talk about agent skills, they are really important. So I write them with AI, but that does not mean that I wipe them. I analyze them, plan them, and so on. Do you think you should be fleshing out more of the game specs up front? Like I noticed you didn't define your arena. Is it round, square? That's a good point. I probably should have done that. To be honest, I didn't think about it because maybe also because of the lack in game development and because my vision clearly was like Brotato, which is rectangle. And since I gave it that information, that it's a Brotato-like, it may actually be able to infer a lot from that. But you're absolutely right. I probably should have flashed out the game spec in greater detail. That being said, I also want to at least vibe code that a bit so that we get something onto the screen and we don't spend the entire stream just planning and creating a spec. You are absolutely right. For a more serious game, you want to spend more time on that, though, just as you do on other projects. Yeah, but we'll see which result we get here. once the plan is done and once we start implementing it, if we maybe should have fleshed it out a bit more. So right now, as it seems, it's still editing that plan, and it's editing it based on reviewer feedback, which is the idea. It creates a plan based on research and so on, and then it has a reviewer review it. And here, for example, let's see what was reviewed. So it had an instruction in the plan to actually test it with Agent Browser, which is a tool I have installed or I have available, so that it takes a look at the game. And that was refined. Okay, it was basically split to have a bit more detail here on how to analyze this. Okay, yeah, so the reviewer basically flagged that this is a bit too vague and that more details are needed, as it seems. And this can take a while, obviously, because of how I built that create plan skill. It has all these review cycles. And I also had it in the past, oh, it's done now, but I had it in the past that it would almost enter an infinite loop. So I tweaked those skills and gave it some instructions to not add more and more complexity, because it did that too. It entered that infinite loop and made the project more and more complex, handling all kinds of esoteric niche cases. And I don't want that. So now, currently, I think I'm at a nice sweet spot. So now let's take a look at that plan that it created here. Thoughts for the character creator for this game. I'm not sure if we'll get to that today, but no, I have no thoughts yet. And I also don't know yet how exactly I'll do the sprite part. I don't have any sprites. I don't plan on using any service for that. Maybe we'll just AI generate some images and see if that gets us anywhere. But yeah, we'll see. So that's the plan now for the basic vertical slice. Problem and target, replace the phaser version placeholder, which I currently have in the code, with the first playable combat increment, a bounded arena, keyboard controlled player, randomly spawning pursuers, invisible pistol that automatically fires projectiles, 960 by 540 logical arena, scaled to fit the browser, generated placeholder visuals, normalized WASD arrow movement, player world bound collision, that's good. I did not think about that, but we should have that. Perimeter, enemy spawning, 40 enemies, safety cap. Sounds all good. Out of scope, player health them. Okay, so we don't have any health or death yet. We don't have timed waves. We have no HUD. Yeah, we'll keep it basic. That's okay. We don't have audio. That's okay. One arena scene, enemy, projectile, and pistol classes. So then it split that into various tasks. T1, start the phaser arena shell. And I would normally read that all in great detail. I don't want to bore you, so I'll just, and we have that vibe coding theme, so I'll just glimpse over it. But that sounds about right, creating that arena. Has some checks it wants to run, including Agent Browser to take a look at the arena, which is important. Add player movement and enemy pressure. Add invisible pistol and the projectiles. Yeah, I think that will be fine. So what we can do now is we can grab that plan. And I could stay in that session, but yeah, I mean, yeah, context is still fine. But what I typically do is I either start a new session, or in Pi, I also like the tree feature. Because every session in Pi is a tree of messages and you can move around them and create new branches. So what you could do now is we could go back to this state, and then so now you're jumping back in the tree and you're opening up a new branch. And now you could tell it to summarize all the work that was in the branch you're leaving, also with a custom prompt, or you have no summary, which is fine for me. And now I'm back in a way earlier point where we just set up the project. So I jumped back from the entire planning phase. It's still there though, it's still part of the tree. I could go back to it here, but I'm now in a new branch, in this branch here. where we only occupy 6% of the context. It's the same session, but a different branch. And now here, I can say, I can use my implement plan skill, which I created, and point at that plan, which I did not copy as it seems, but it's this one here. And I now can also change the model. I wanted to do that, so I'll switch to Grok 4.5 and also switch to, yeah, maybe let's go medium. Let's see how well it does there. Now let's go high. We're vibe coding. I need all the power I can get. Grok also has a bigger context window, which is why we now use even less context because the upper limit is higher. And now with that, we can go ahead. That will activate the skill automatically since I used it like this. And now, yeah, it's activating more skills, which I point at in my implement plan skill. And now it goes ahead and, again, launches sub agents and does all that stuff and hopefully builds that game. I will also already stop that dev server since these agents, of course, have a tendency of launching it on its own and I don't want it to clash. You sometimes have the LLM do a retrospective on your complete history of session chat and give you SWOT analysis, your way of working, where it could be improved. That is a great idea. No, I don't do that. But that is a good idea. I should be doing that. And I will do that. Thank you so much. That is a good idea. And tree is awesome indeed. Yeah, tree is such a cool feature in Pi. Really like it a lot. Got a dip, best flag, looking forward to the progress. Thanks for all you do. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining and have a great day. And yeah, we'll see what it does here. Now, of course, whilst this is working, we could spin up a second agent, Claude Code, or another Pi instance. I'm just not sure if there is anything else. I mean, we could generate some game sprites. I can start a new Pi instance here and say, we're building at game. We'll need some sprites eventually. Please analyze the file. And then share some suggestions on which sprites we should create for a basic v1 or v dot or v dot 0.5. Do not create anything yet. So obviously we could also think about this ourselves, but we're vibe coding a bit at least. And I have not a lot of experience with games. So obviously I know that we need something for the player and that we need something for the enemy, but I don't know how many sprites we need because we want to have animations. So I want to have some suggestions there. And that was quick. I'm still on Grok. Grok is quicker. That makes sense. So just so that you see, I'm still on Grok here, and Grok is indeed quite a bit faster. So, whoops, hello, can I please get that? Thank you very much. Here we go. And it's opening this page automatically, by the way, but on a different screen, which is why I have to bring it over. So it is suggesting, yeah, obviously we need player, enemy, we need something for a projectile, though I think we could maybe just use a rendered circle there, like a sphere, arena, floor, bounds. Yeah, we can use a solid fill, I agree. Yeah, I mean, initially we'll just have rectangles and so on, but then thereafter, it would probably be nice to have some actional sprites. Yeah, so at some point we want some actual sprites, images. How many frames would you suggest for player, enemy? And which art style would you suggest? And obviously, typically, you may want to think about the art style yourself, but I don't want to think too much here. I want to embrace the vibes and also chat with you guys. So But in general, it should be a Brotato clone. I want to have like a similar cartoony style. That's my take on it, but we'll see what it suggests. So what do we have here? Yeah, initially we have that static stuff that's clear, but then it suggests 2 to 4 sprites, which makes sense. We're not building like a 3D AAA game here. We just need something that indicates movement or being hurt or something like that. So we don't need a lot of sprites for that. And it makes sense that, for example, for being hurt, we just flash or we just tint the sprite instead of having an extra sprite. Chunky pixel art. Yeah, I don't want to have. I don't want pixel art. I would prefer cartoon illustration styles. Does that make sense? I'm no expert at naming art styles, so please give me some suggestions. Oh yeah, and it should be top down. I'll add that later. Yes, cartoon illustration makes total sense here. By the way, the nice thing about her is I still see that this is going on here on the left. So I don't need to check if it's done. It isn't done. It's still going on. So that's nice. This one here on the other end is done. So clean vector cartoon. That sounds good. Very readable in Swarms. Yeah, we'll go clean. We'll go clean vector cartoon and follow your other suggestions. It'll be top down. Please update game.md respectively. Thereafter, git commit that file. So we're updating that game.md file with those art choices. How do you monitor multi-agents work in Pi? This is Herder. That's an extra tool, a terminal multiplexer. So that is Herder, written like that. That allows me to have multiple agents in one terminal, but then each terminal is just one Pi instance. But Herder is doing the multi-agent monitoring. You were my first programming teacher. That is amazing. I hope it was helpful. Thank you so much for the shout out. Good to see you again, Master Obi-Wan. Yeah, I try to stream every Thursday. So unfortunately, it doesn't work out on every Thursday, but today it does. So yeah, I'll try to do it every Thursday. Is Grok multimodal? No, none of these models which I use can build the sprites, but I have another skill for that, which is also in that repository. I have the generate image skill here, which is like a utility skill. It has a script, which was vibe coded, to be honest, a script which uses the FOL API, for which I have an API key, which is not in the repository, obviously. And now for some reason that isn't loading. Normally it is loading. That is essentially a service that hosts various models, also for image generation. And I have a script here which talks to that service to generate an image. And then I have a skill that explains how to use that script so that I can ask an agent and it will craft a prompt, invoke that script, generate the image, store that image in the right place, and handle that script for me, essentially. So that is what we can use for image generation later. The models I'm using here can't natively generate images as far as I know. Hello Max, I use VS Code. Codex CLI is AI mostly to generate boilerplate bug finding, but I prefer to refactor the rest manually. Is this workflow inefficient? To be honest, we're still all figuring out how to work with AI. And I think there are some people who overshoot by using AI for everything and not doing anything on their own and just building fancy loops which lead nowhere, in my opinion, but I may be wrong. And then there are people that don't use AI at all, and I think that's also not a good idea. But the middle ground, we're all still figuring out how to use AI, what to do manually, what to offload to AI, and things will look different in 6 months again, I'm sure. So yeah, use whatever works well for you. But be open, that's my suggestion at least, be open to the technology, try things out, experiment, and take it from there. Um, do you use different work trees for? I use them a ton, and merge conflicts are easily resolved. Yeah, I do use work trees too for implementation. My sub agents are incentivized to use work trees, and I'm actually not sure if it did use one here. It may do that. I absolutely do tell it to use work trees or to consider using it. But the orchestrating agent, so here, this agent, which is spinning up all those sub-agents, is deciding whether to use a work tree and is responsible for merging them back together. So I don't even necessarily see that, but it should at least consider using them, yeah. Is it going to be a Three.js-based game? No, it's going to be a 2D game. I'm very new to this building game stuff, so what I did was to ask my agent to build some boilerplate I could use first and now can wrap my head around. Yeah, I'm new to it too. So I have absolutely no experience with that, and I have no idea what the best approach is. It's just what I'm trying out here. Please take a moment to drink some water, stretch a little. I'll do the stretching later. I'll cycle home later, so I'll get some. I'll move a bit later, but the water is a good tip, but I don't want to drink too much because I don't want to head to the toilet. A tutorial about Git work trees. Sure, I may do one. In my experience, one of the nicest things about work trees is if you let the AI handle it, though. All the merge conflicts and stuff. AI, the latest models with the right skills and so on are really good at handling work trees on their own. But still, that is something that may be worth diving a bit deeper into in a tutorial, I agree. The full AI pricing is pretty good. It's like the normal pricing you would get directly from the provider too, but the advantage is that you don't have to sign up with a bunch of different providers, but you have it all in one place through one API. That's why I like them a lot. I used to use Replicate, but Replicate was very, very often down and not very reliable, so that's why I switched. Yeah. I'm trying to experiment with some ideas from the loops people, and it's driving me insane. Yeah, I mean, some things work. I also have a loop here. I have reviewers being kicked off, and then I have the main agent evaluating the reviewer feedback and incorporating that. That is also a loop. I'm just not building the entire game in one single loop with one single prompt. But having those sub loops makes sense, but it's such a hyped up term because coding agents, even a year ago, already were about loops. I mean, the agentic loop is the heart of every coding agent, that you send a prompt and that it keeps on going, keeps on calling tools. So loops are a natural part of it. I'm just not a fan of making it seem like you now just have to draft the perfect markdown file and then send it off, and then 2 days later you get back the finished, bug-free, perfect project. That's the part which I'm not a fan of, framing it like this. But obviously you're using small loops everywhere, and that is totally fine. And that is what I try to use and see what can I put in a loop, so which having like a reviewer makes sense, but at some point you want to step in and also take a look yourself, at least in my experience. Can you please let us know your work experience till now, the difference that you see in initial phase and now, in short, if you can? You mean what I worked at, or it's not entirely clear, or how we work with AI or before AI? It's not entirely clear to me what you mean. Yeah, and I absolutely agree. Experiment with as much as you can. This technology is so new and changing so rapidly, you gotta experiment and gotta be open. Why am I not using VS Code, where you can also work with many terminals? Mostly because VS Code kept on crashing on me. It was super annoying. Suddenly, after a couple of hours, it would just randomly crash, and I would have to reopen all my sessions, and that was just annoying. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm just not using VS Code. It was too unstable, too memory hungry. Yeah. Did I choose Pi for any specific reason? For me, it's really just a minimal core, and that I can then tweak it and extend it into whatever I want it to be. I can ask it to build its own extensions. I can throw away those extensions if I'm not happy with them. I can install extensions by other people. It has a very minimal core. It doesn't pollute the context with any built-in system prompt that's invisible or maybe hard to change. And that is the part I like. The minimalism that I can then build into whatever I want. But I said it before, and it's really important. All these coding agents are great, really. It's not like you have to use Pi and Herder to be cool. That's just for people like me who like tweaking and building their own stuff. You can absolutely just use the Codex desktop app, or Claude Code, or the Claude Code desktop app, or T3 Code, or any other aid. They're all amazing. All these agents are amazing and will get the job done. I just like being able to build or to turn this agent into whatever I want it to be. What app is this? This is Herder, written like this, with the Pi coding agent. Greetings from Regensburg. Greetings back from Munich. Regensburg is such a nice city. I always like it when I get there. Such a beautiful city. My parents went to the university in Regensburg. So I have fond, well, I don't have personal fond memories, but it's kind of a special place. Good. So the plan was implemented. Let's see. Okay. So now it'll be interesting. What do we have? Okay. So we have a player. I can move. It's a bit blurry. But we have a player with enemies spawning. We don't have any health system yet, I believe. I don't think I can die. I don't know. But yeah, we're shooting, we're moving. And that generally is Brotato, I would say. Now, I don't know if that will keep on going forever, or I don't think we have a timer. So I will tell it that it's a bit blurry. So something may be off with the rendering. Not sure if you can see it on the stream, but it's a bit blurry. The shapes are a bit blurry. And of course, yeah, I also want this to end at some point. I want a health bar. But yeah, generally that works. So I'll say git commit. Looks good. Bayer and greater all other states. I'll not comment on that. I don't want to create any enemies. But I like living in Bavaria. One of the plugins, yeah, maybe. But to be honest, I'm happy with the setup. I'll not go back to just VS Code. Now, we can take a look at the code, though, and I do like VS Code for that. I'm just not a NeoVim guy. Because I have no idea how the code should look like, because I've never used Phaser, but let's see what we got. So we select an element where we render the game, and we create a game from the Phaser engine by creating a new Phaser game instance. Here we render it to that app element. I don't know what Phaser Auto is. This setting will auto detect if the browser is capable of supporting WebGL. Got it. Set the width and height of the arena as it seems. Background color. We'll set up the physics model as it seems. Scale. Scene is the arena scene. Okay, so that is important. Arena scene. So we work with scenes. And an arena scene extends the phaser scene, defines what's going on in the arena as it seems. So we create that scene by setting up some physics boundaries. So I guess that's for collision. We add a rectangle. So that is like the arena background, I assume. Or is that for collision? Not sure. Maybe for collision. No, I guess it's a background. Borders. So we have like the strokes around the board, around the arena as borders. And then we call a bunch of methods for adding a player, enemy group, projectile group. So I guess stuff gets grouped for efficient management. And then we have update, which I assume runs once every frame. Placeholder textures. Yeah, so that's just the circles being rendered. Create the player entity. Set collider world bound so that we can't leave the arena. Then we have the enemy group where we spawn our enemies. And we should have, when do we spawn a new enemy? Do we try spawn enemy? Okay, so we basically check if 800 milliseconds passed and then we spawn a new enemy. I don't know if that is good code, by the way, if we're following the best practices here, because again, I have no experience with Phaser. I'm just trying to understand what's going on here. Handle projectile enemy overlap, so that's essentially doing damage detection, as I understand it. So, or we hit detection, I mean. And again, I'm not sure if that is all efficient and stuff, but let's hope for the best. Input handling, up, down, left, right. That's where we set up WASD. Update player movement. And then we got for enemy spawning, we do that randomly, just of course limited by the arena width and height so that the enemies don't spawn outside of the arena. Update enemy pursuit, so that's basically the targeting system so that they move to the object, that the enemy moves to the player. Destroy projectiles that expired or left the arena bounds. Okay, so that projectiles that didn't hit for some reason don't keep on flying or being rendered forever. Okay, so that makes sense. Weapon, pistol, it's a class, which also has a cooldown so that it's not firing non-stop. Tries to find the nearest enemy. Now, I know that stuff like this can always be difficult for performance. If you run detection to find the nearest enemy or to find the player, if you run that every frame, and I'm not sure actually, we seem to be running this every frame. That may be inefficient, to be honest, but I don't know how Phaser handles that and if I'm missing something here. But of course, if you're scanning like all enemies and all the player and you do that every frame, that could be a performance problem at some point. But yeah, right now it seemed to work fine. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I think I understand what's going on here. Let me quickly catch up in chat. No, before I do that, I'll actually start the next task. Now, again, I could do this in a new session, but there's so much empty space in this context window that we can also continue here. And I can't just say player and enemy shapes were kind of blurry. Investigate carefully and do any research necessary. I want to nudge it at diving into the docs to find out why that may be happening. No rushing. Take your time. Do not edit anything, just share your findings. So I want it to investigate and then explain to me why that may be blurry. You should try to live in Berlin. I did actually live in Berlin. 10 years ago, I lived there for 2 years. Is it good practice to ask PyAgent to make changes and then tweak them in VS Code? Now, the problem with all those agents, in my experience, is that if you tweak something whilst the agent is working, it will just constantly throw away your changes, totally ignores them and annihilates them. So changing whilst the agent is working is not a good idea. you would have to do that in a separate work tree or something like that. Yeah, it's true. AI always adds pointless TypeScript annotations like void return. That is true. It does that because the entire type inference stuff is, of course, hidden to the AI, but it does therefore add a lot of boilerplate to the code for sure. Which version of TypeScript is being used? Good question. We're using 5.9.3. So we could be using 7, to be honest, but yeah. Max joined the AI hype train. No, I'm just interested in staying in the industry. That has nothing to do with the hype train. But AI is not a fad, and there is a lot of hype around AI for sure. But you gotta adapt or you gotta go. And I rather adapt. Because AI clearly is useful and the future. Why player enemy shapes look blurry? This is almost certainly display scaling small soft edge placeholder textures. Canvas is upscaled after a low res render. Tiny circle textures. So we're basically rendering that pretty low res and then we're scaling it up. That's not good. Okay. So we should fix it. I also took a look at the code. Not sure if the player detection code, enemy detection code for projectiles will cause performance issues. Please investigate and share your thoughts. Also look for common best practices and see what the docs say. Yeah, the model I used was not trained on TypeScript 7. Definitely not, nah. So we could, of course, update. It's just not too important here. Can I use React for a game that requires thousands of actions being accurate within under 1 second? My understanding is no, if you're building something like this, because if you're rendering something to a canvas, which is in the end what we're doing, that can be GPU optimized, but that's not React rendering to the DOM. That's a different process. So my understanding is that there is no way of doing that with just React in a performant way. But then again, I'm absolutely not a game developer, especially, well, in general not, but I also have no game development experience in the browser. So let's see. Okay, at the current scale, we have no performance issues. They match Phaser's own patterns. Okay. We'll be fine then, I think. Okay, so yeah. Let's fix the blurriness then. Go ahead and share your thoughts on how to do that. I could ask it to create a plan, but then again, it'll do all the reviewing stuff. I could tell it to not do that though, but I think that should be easy enough to not need a detailed plan. I just wanted to write down what it plans to do. Yeah, do not worry about efficiency until it has surfaced. That is true. That is true. Hello from Kiev. I like your courses. You are the best teacher. Hello back. Thank you so much. Happy to hear you're liking the courses. Is Herder creating the .md files for the specs? No, the MD files I asked the model to create. And I, for example, have a Py extension that automatically puts the last agent message it spits out into a MD file in some temp folder. which I can then open up easily. Phaser is one of the first JavaScript game engines. Oh, okay. It's good to know. Okay, so let's see. Again, normally I don't need to manually copy this around. It's just because I have these two screens going on here. How to fix the blur, highest impact, render at device pixel density, high impact, stop using tiny soft circles, suggested implementation order. Okay, go ahead and implement this. So now I don't have a plan file because, again, this should be a fairly simple fix. So it was hopefully able to do that just like this. We'll see. In the meantime, I mean, I can go to my other agent, and here we decided before on the art style, and of course right now I'm just rendering circles, but we could now also ask it to generate images. And I have no idea how well that will work out. Let's now generate actual sprites. Choose some reasonable images for player and enemy. Create one sprite sheet for the player and one for the enemy with the frame sprites inside. So I want one image with multiple images inside, so to say. I think that's how you do it in game development. I have no idea. Make sure to properly position those sprites so that extracting works consistently. I don't want it to randomly put those images into the image. So create exactly two images, one for the player with its frames and one for the enemy. Yeah. And we'll see how that goes. It should now use my create image skill, my generate image skill, and it does. And that allows it to send a request to Fall, which I mentioned before. And it can then use an image generation model. It's using GPT-Image2 because I hard-coded that into my script there to generate those images. So that's what it's doing now. It generated a prompt essentially, and now it's sent off two requests, which are now being processed. This one here failed, as it seems. The first one is still going on. Not sure why this one here both failed. Is this an issue with Fall? Requested image size exceeds the max. Okay, it requested something invalid here. Yeah, but it should be able to figure that out. And we'll see how that goes. And the other agent is, yeah, I mean, that's the nice thing about the agents. The bad thing is I'm paying for that. I could, of course, write the prompt myself and execute the script myself, and then I would not be paying for that. The advantage is I just give it some vague instructions and it can figure something out. Obviously, vague instructions is not what you want if you have a specific plan, but I don't have that here, so yeah, it's good enough. And we'll see what we get. Will I make any herder deep dive video? Yeah, I think that is something I could do. I'm still also getting better at it, but why not? Probably makes sense. FPS counter would be nice to have. That's true. And a health bar would also be nice to have. You can use a texture atlas in game, that for sure. Sprite sheet, it's small overhead. It's easier these days for sure than having separate images on disk. Phaser has an optimizing atlas, I think. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll generate that and then I'll just tell AI, hey, can we use that? And we'll see. Is it normal to feel pressured to set much shorter deadlines? Yeah, I think you can feel pressured that you need to get more done in shorter or equal time. And I think it's important to actively at least for yourself, it's harder in the work context if your boss has certain expectations for sure. But for yourself, I think you have to actively push back and kind of slow down and relax and try to relax and not because if you enter that spinning wheel where you try to go faster and faster and faster, I think that's basically a recipe for burning out. So, yeah. Did you forget? Make no mistakes. I try to avoid that. So yeah, let's see which images we get here and if they are. So one image is done and it should now copy that into this project here, I hope. Both images are done now. Inspecting the generated, sheets. So I can show you what it generated. This is, I guess, the enemy. To be honest, 3 of these 4 images look equal to me. I'm not sure if this is really any animation. Yeah, maybe the feet moved a bit. Yeah, maybe. And I mean, that's not actually transparent, right? That is just, I think at least. I'm not sure. That may just be like that fake transparency background that causes us problems. I should probably have told it to use white background and then remove it programmatically. But we'll see if it's able to make something work here. It looks like it wrote a little script to process this. Yeah, we'll see what it gives us here. Did it add them here to the project? It did. And I was wrong. This was transparent background. Cool. That's us, seemingly. And that is, there's a little bit of movement here with the feet. Okay. Yeah. So it looks like we got sprite sheets. And it's done. Got 2 sprite sheets here. And we'll then soon see if we can use them. Are you using the new bun that's Rust? I'm not sure if I have installed that because it's been a while since I last worked with bun. No, I still have the old one here, but I will be using it, yeah. These days you should be using Fable 5, which delegates tasks to agents. Yeah, Fable 5 is very good, but to be honest, I'm delegating to agents here too, right? So you don't need Fable 5 for that. Sub-agents is a general concept, and we're using sub-agents here too. Not here, because I told it to just fix an issue, but earlier we did, of course. So you should be using sub-agents. I agree on that. And I agree that Fable 5 is a very good model. There is something about keeping the texture atlas evenly divisible by 2 for optimization. Okay. Huh. Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure we could improve it by a lot. I mean, these images are also maybe rather large. This one has almost 400 kilobytes. This one here is 600, so that may be too large. But I don't know. We'll see if it makes it work and if we then need to improve or change something. Right now, I'm just waiting for it to actually finish up this part here where it tries to fix the blurriness. Maybe we can spin up the dev server and take a look. Yeah, doesn't look blurry anymore. Okay, cool. Cool. So it should be done momentarily here, I guess. It's just still testing it. Because I told it to in the skills. And we could, of course, cancel it, but I'll let it finish. And then we'll try to use that sprite sheet. And it's done. Good, good. So git commit your changes. And now, once it is done with committing, come on. By the way, one thing I also have those models do, I added a global agentsmd file that tells them to write quite detailed commit messages, because I think at least that models used to also sometimes inspect the git log, and then I see that as a little bit of extra context that explains what happened in a project. But that is one of the parts where I'm experimenting with and where I'm not sure if it will work out. And the engine I'm using is Phaser, by the way. Okay, so now we can go back to an earlier point again here using that tree feature. We implemented the arena. The next step is that I want to use the sprites. So now there are different parts where we could go back to, but I'll go back to the very beginning where we just set up the base project. Now I will choose to summarize with a custom prompt here. Summarize what we worked on and added, including a list of files touched with short per file summaries. So again, using that py branch feature, and often I use that without summarizing, but now I want to keep some of the context of what it did, but go back to a way earlier point in time in that session. And by the way, when you jump around in a session with tree, you are not editing the code. It's just the session context, basically. So now we have the branch summary, and in there we see what did it put there. It added this to the context here, that we implemented the arena, what we have. It points at specific commits, and it mentions those files, including the plan file, which is nice. A future agent could then look at that file to understand what we did. So that's good, and now we can continue. Now I'll switch back to GPT 5.6 Sol here for planning. And I want to continue now and use those sprites. We have sprites for player and enemy in public sprites. No, what is the folder? Public assets sprites. Let's use those now. There are multiple frames in each sheet for animations. Analyze those images, dive into GameMD, and do the necessary research to understand how to use sprite sheets and if they need any adjustments, and how to implement animations in this project. Do not edit anything yet, just do the research and analysis, then share your thoughts and suggestions. And now we'll send it off and let it do that for that next step, because again, I have no idea how it works, so I want to learn myself. One thing I noticed about your Pi, it's not asking for permissions. Is Pi easier to use with permissions? So by default, Pi doesn't have any permissions check. It has unlimited permissions, which can of course be risky, which is why normally, by the way, I don't code on my laptop here. Doing it now to have, so that I didn't have to go through all the initial setup with being able to preview an app that's running on my VPS, but normally I don't code on my laptop, because if something breaks, it only breaks on some VPS then, where I can easily restore stuff because it's all on GitHub. So that's one thing, but it doesn't have that permission management system. Now you can install, there are a lot of packages, and you can also build your own ones, as I mentioned, but you can install packages like the guardrails extension, which adds some permission checks. You can do that to get some, But I disabled that to have more flexibility, and instead, again, I typically work in an environment where it can't break a lot. That's my approach here. Do you live code often like that? Nah, actually not. Because when I live code, I feel the urge to at least somewhat entertain people and also, of course, interact. But if I really code, and that's why I'm doing a bit of vibe coding here, if I really code, I'm not very talkative. I'm just deeply concentrated, and yeah, so I don't live code a lot. You know, it's always fun at Christmas family gatherings where they're in awe with simple AI things. Meanwhile, you're sitting there, if you only knew what I'm doing, like right now, remote control. Yeah, I mean, the gap between what we're doing and what we know about and what other people, to some degree, know and use is immense. And you can really totally stun people by showing them what you can do. I recently I posted it on X. I think I used AI to just asked it, hey, I got this unoptimized video, please optimize it, and so on. So super simple task, of course. But stuff like that, or build a Microsoft Excel sheet with AI, or anything like that, that can be totally impressive for other people. Yeah, the gap is real right now. I really like Pi because it's so small and has few tools that saves context size. Yeah, for me too. It's very efficient, very minimal, and you can build it into exactly what you want. Am I using Interfont or JetBrains font? I actually don't know. I'm using the default Herder shipped with. Herder and Ghosty. This is Ghosty as the terminal, Herder running inside it, then Pi inside Herder. And I have not configured any fonts here, so I actually don't know. I think Herder has some theming system, but I actually did not. Yeah, it has some themes, but I don't know what the fonts are. Yeah, I'll stick to Cappuccino. Okay, so now we'll hopefully soon learn how we can use those images. I'll not add more images for now, but what we can already do here in that other agent, we can start a new session here. And I'm using GPT 5.6 Sol in high mode here. And we can ask, or we can plan ahead. So what I like to do is say something like we're building games, so point at that file. Please analyze the current code base in depth, step by step, without rushing, doing that to make sure or to increase the chances of it really diving in. As a next step, I want to add a health bar floating above the player's head. An entire health and an entire health and death system for player and enemies. And a timer so that the wave ends after 60 seconds. If the player is alive, we show a "You won" screen. Otherwise, a "Game over" screen if the player died. From both screens, we should be able to start a new game. Now again, this is a task you could consider splitting up into smaller tasks, but since we're using a game engine, I think it can do that in one go. But otherwise, the HUD may be a separate task, the timer may be a separate task, the game over screens may be a separate task. But here I'll have one, and I'll say, do the necessary research and analysis, then share your thoughts and suggestions on how to build this. So I'll not send it into planning mode right away. Instead, I want to have it do some research and be able to have a discussion with it so that I can adjust the direction in which we're going if I find that it's the wrong direction. And then I can ask it to really write a plan once we settled on that. I could also ask it to build a plan right away, but it will go into all those review loops, and then just for me to find out that there's something in there which I don't want it to do is not a good idea. So yeah, I'll do it like this. Now the other agent is done, and again, we can see what it tells me here. That was about the sprite sheets. Both files are valid fixed grid sheets. The frames are consistently centered around blah, blah, blah. So animation should not visibly drift. We'll see. Because, of course, if those images in the images are slightly off, we'll have broken animation. So we'll see if that works. Okay. Potential art direction conflicts. No, that the player is front facing is okay, because actually I know in games there is this trick where it's top down, but the player is rendered front facing in some games at least. So yeah, that you see it actually. Add a minimal preload scene. I mean, I have no idea of how to do that in Phaser, so I'll just have to accept whatever it suggests there. A good starting point is displaying each frame at blah, blah, logical pixels, so scale it down, okay. So I guess we could also theoretically ask it to scale down the images to make them smaller, but yeah, if we don't run into any performance issues, I think I'll just leave it like this. So yeah, we'll let it do that. So now, since we analyzed it, I'll ask it to go ahead and create a plan, but actually it'll probably be able to do it just like this, because what else would be in a plan? Go ahead and implement this. Make sure to also analyze those changes then. Also in game via agent browser. According to implement plan skill, even though we don't have a plan file here. So a bit more detail, but I want to make sure that it really follows that same approach, even though I didn't create a plan here. So I'll let Grok handle this again. And here we go. And the agents won't clash because the other agent is just researching, not working on it. Does this editor allow you to manually edit code? Download response does not contain a... What? Try again. Oh, maybe because I switched model and images were involved. Let's switch back to 5.6 Sol. Looks like it tried to get an image again, which was used before. And because I'm now using Grok, that doesn't work. Whatever. So I can. So this is just a terminal. I cannot edit files there. I could add NeoVim. I typically just use VS Code because I'm used to it. Or alternatively, I also have, I forget the name. Is it Spice Edit? That's a nice little terminal editor. Looks a bit like NeoVim, but unlike NeoVim, it's also for people like me because you can just use the mouse and then just type, right? So that's like a normal editor. So I can use that as well. But that is brand new. I have not really worked a lot with that. Yeah. But I think it's a bit more approachable for me. So that is something I may use here instead of VS Code maybe in the future. We'll see. What do you usually pay for API use in a month? So I don't use any models here through the API except for image generation, and I don't really generate a lot of images, so that's just a couple of cents. And for the other models, I have the subscriptions. So right now I have both the big OpenAI and the big Anthropic subscription, so it's $400. And for Grok, I have my X subscription, which includes some Grok usage. So that's an extra $40, which I was paying anyways for X. So yeah, 440 right now, but that's not always the case. That's the case right now because there's so much happening there in the model space that I want to make sure that I can experiment with them all and play around with them all. As developers, we do tend to be in our bubble vibe coding all of this, but should we think of guiding our ignorant families so they don't get scammed by AI phishing and malicious stuff? We absolutely should, I think. And I mean, it's a super difficult topic, at least that's an experience I have. You want to share what's possible, but for one, most people, understandably to some degree, of course, are not really paying for that, so they can't use the same tools as you do. So whenever they try to replicate what I tell them, they fail, or they just can't try it on their own. So that's one issue with the education. And of course, you don't want to be that guy that tells other people how to live their lives or do stuff. And a lot of people, also understandably, are so annoyed by AI that they don't really want to talk about that. That's at least something I have experienced to some degree, which makes it hard to then help people. But yeah, you absolutely should try to kind of make people aware of the risk, and especially of the scamming, as you said, that will happen because of AI. And that's already happening. You can use models outside their apps without using the API. Yeah, you can. The Claude models, you're not allowed to use outside of Claude Code, unless that has changed again. But the XAI models, so Grok, and the OpenAI models, GPT 5.6 and so on, you can use legally in Pi. Inside of Pi, you can just run /login, and then you can log in. It says Anthropic account here, but my understanding is that you can only use your extra usage credits here, not your normal subscription. But I did log in with Codex and XAI, as you see. And besides that, you can also add API keys. And I did, for example, add an OpenRouter key. So I can use a bunch of models like Kimi K3, for example, through OpenRouter. But there I'll be paying API prices, which is, of course, rather expensive. But you can do that, yeah. Have I tried a local model for programming? I have, but honestly, it's been some time. But to my understanding, they're still not good enough. What you could probably do is you could probably do basic programming, or you could like plan with a very capable model and then offload certain tasks to local models. But that's not something I've experimented with. Yeah. Yeah, so here it's now implementing this and researching and creating a plan. So I didn't ask it to create a plan, but that's the thing with 5.6 Sol. It sometimes just goes ahead and does it anyways. And I should have probably told it explicitly to not do it or tweak my skills again. But okay, it's fine. But because of that, it's now taking all a bit longer. Stop the review cycles. Just give me what you have thus far. So I'm sending this message as a steering message so that it's injected the next time the agent is ready, so that it doesn't continue reviewing, enhancing, because I just want to get an answer to my original question here, or my original goal, which was that I wanted it to research how to implement the HUD and these game over screens. So now it's cleaning up those sub-agents. That's good. It should do that. It's good that it didn't skip that. But then hopefully soon it also just gives me an answer. And yeah, there are unexpected source changes. It's fine. So it did create a plan, which is now, of course, not fully finished. Main findings, enemy health, death already exist. That's true. Enemies can die. So we should give the player health, Give it some contact immunity, which makes sense, so that if, I guess, if an enemy clashes into the player, it doesn't die instantly because every frame adds like damage, but that instead there is an initial damage and then the player has a short window to move away, so that makes sense. We need run states to then show the proper scene. Overlap callbacks run repeatedly. Damage immunity is required to prevent instant death. Yep. Phaser scene instances are reused, so class fields cannot rely solely. Absolute timestamps jump after a hidden tab resume. Okay. Yeah, okay, that sounds okay. So let's take a look at that plan. That was the wrong thing. Here is the plan file. So it did create a plan here, even though I did not ask for it. Add player health, contact damage. Add the pause save, 60-second wave. Restart cleanly from both result screens. That is important. Okay, but I'll wait for this to finish because, of course, we could be using work trees here to do this in parallel. But yeah, I think this should be done soon anyways. Maybe we can play the game in the meantime. It may already be working again. Let's see. Yeah, we got... I mean, we're always facing the same direction, and so are the players. The enemies. We may need to to add some logic to rotate them. But in general, we got our enemies. We got our player. Yeah, it looks a bit weird when they're walking backwards, but the sprites are being used. That is the main thing, of course, here right now. So here it's still doing more code review, but I'll say stop it, finish the work, because I gotta go soon, and yeah, I don't want it to go on forever here. I rather add that HUD here. Oh, I'm so late. Yeah, but the stream will stay online. The recording will stay online on YouTube. And I'll try to stream again next Thursday. Because in general, I try to stream every Thursday. Always around that time. So I'll be back. And I'm not done yet. There is more to add. So here, the goal now, of course, is that it finishes up. But somehow it decided to not do that. What's it doing here? Stop reviewing, finish up. I could, of course, cancel it. But actually, I wanted to clean up the sub-agents. Clean up the sub-agents, finish. So I wanted to just clean up the sub-agents. That's why I'm not just canceling it. Yeah. And once it did that, we can go to the last task here for today, which is adding that HUD and those game over screens so that we have a fully functional, at least basic game. Git commit your changes. That's also something I'll add here because I wanted to commit, of course. I mean, that's the thing. GPT 5.6 Sol is a bit slower. Grok is faster. But we'll get there. Okay, and now we can implement that other plan here. So in that other session, I'll use good old PyTree and go back to my first message without a summary. And in there, I'll just keep that we're building game. implement this plan and actually do that with grok again on high. And this now should trigger the implement plan skill, and it does. And now it should implement that plan. Regarding grok, there's a bug that plugin hooks aren't loaded in when starting a grok session. Yeah, but I'm using grok in Pi, so I'm not using the grok CLI, which is good though. But possible that there is a bug. I haven't encountered it, but of course, I actually haven't used any plugins in the grok CLI. Can I provide you with the total tokens consumed? Yeah, I don't even know how easily I can do that. The tokens are visible down there, but with all the tree usage, I actually don't know if I can easily do that. If I would have to guess, just based on what I see here for this session and for this session, I would guess it would be roughly maybe around 3 million tokens sent out. But just a guess. I have no quick and easy way of checking, to be honest. I could ask AI, sure, but I don't want to kick off a new process that takes forever because I actually gotta go soon. So I'll just finish this up. And I want to see, I mean, thus far, you have to say, with all the research and the planning that we did, I'm quite happy with the result. Obviously, this is a super, super simple game, but we have a game with real images, with the base gameplay loop, or one of the core gameplay loops intact, and I think that's not a bad result. And now I just want to see whether it gets this done, this HUD, and that we actually can win and lose the game. And yeah. So now the build passed. Now it's testing the game itself. Taking some screenshots here. And I guess since the game server is up, I can test as well. So I got my HUD here. We're shooting enemies. We got the timer. The timer's a bit blurry. I guess that's, again, some upscaling issues, so we would have to fix that. But let me try to survive here for a minute to see if we can see the game, the U1 screen, which should appear after 1 minute. Now all my gaming skills are required. Oh god, I got hit. Come on, 20 seconds. Got hit again. But what's nice is we even have a nice hit animation. There's a little, it's probably not visible on stream, but the player has a little fade animation when it gets hit. You won, and it stops. It's also a bit blurry. Start a new game. Now let's try dying. That should be easier. At least once we have some enemies, because right now we're killing them too quickly. Come on, hit me. So now here we're getting hit and game over. So that is working. That's pretty nice. And here it's still doing some testing, but I'll stop that soon because, I mean, as mentioned, I gotta go. It's funny, in 2 hours, manual coding probably could have gotten you just about as far. If you know what you're doing, manual coding could have gotten you much farther, except for the images, because you gotta be able to create those assets. But you can have different opinions about AI-generated art, for sure. Now, given the fact that I don't know anything about game development and about Phaser, I would have not gotten as far in 2 hours, I'm pretty sure. And of course, you can probably accelerate from here as you build more complex systems on top. You must not forget, this is a simple project for a stream where I don't want to concentrate on anything, dealing with something I have zero experience with. So I certainly wouldn't have gotten as far if I had done the same thing with the same knowledge level, answering in chat all the time. But yeah, sure, if you knew what you were doing and you were concentrating on this, you could definitely, I would guess, be at the same point. Still, I'm quite happy with the result here, and I hope it was entertaining and interesting. Maybe I'll continue that game in future streams and add more complex systems and stuff. But until then, I wish you all the best. And again, I'll try to stream again next Thursday, or in general every Thursday. The recording will stay online, and I see you in the future. And I wish you a great day, evening, morning, whatever it is. So